This is part 4. By now I'm on 6th level of staff training, the final level, and I'm doing okay. Despite the loneliness, despite the depression that was creeping into my life, I was just really focused on succeeding. I really wanted to spend as much time in front of the group doing raps as I could. I had an incredible ability to shut my emotions and my feelings down when I was in front of the group. When I was leading a rap, I was at my best. And I didn't have to worry about what staff thought of me. I didn't have to worry about what they were going to confront me with next. And I didn't have to deal with the tormenting depression and loneliness in my life. When I was up in front of that group, I was there for them. I wanted to be that staff member that was there up in front of the group from the 9 a.m. basics rap all the way through the evening rap without a break. Just because I didn't want to have to deal with everything else going on in my life. I wanted to work with and help those kids. At this point too, I'm still clueless as to the idea that nobody on staff ever intended on putting me on junior staff. And the one incident that should have made that crystal clear was the day that my junior walked into the group room with his arms loaded down with office supplies. He had pads of paper, boxes of pens, etc. And the senior staff member sitting in the back of the group saw it and said, "What is all that stuff for?" And he said, "This is for John. I'm going to bust my butt and make him the next junior staff member." I was instantly pissed because it's like, wait a minute, you're my junior. You're supposed to be helping me be the next junior, not John. John's already got somebody in his corner working. And so I was really mad. Looking back on it too, I'm upset with the fact that the senior staff member didn't remind him that, hey, you need to work on getting Don up to snuff. You need to work on Don becoming the next junior, not this other guy. But that didn't happen. I don't know how much time went by, but at some point, my junior calls me out into the hall and says, "Come with me. We're going to be doing a family conference, and you need to do this." I just recently looked back on the levels and what the tasks were within each of those levels. I was supposed to have already done a family conference back on 4th level. I don't know if maybe they just didn't have a lot of family conferences at that point and thought, well, that's the only thing he hasn't done. Let's go ahead and get him through to the 5th level and then to the 6th level or what. But I was supposed to have already done this. It was a 19-year-old client that had put in to pull himself from the program. He didn't want to be there anymore. And so I was led back to the assistant director's office. And it was the assistant director, me, my junior, the client, and his parents were in this room. And he was slouched over in his chair, and he just said, "I don't want to be here anymore. I want to pull myself. I want to leave this program. I don't need to be here anymore. I don't need this place." And there were a lot of people that brought in some points and saying, well, this program will help you get sober, and you have to admit that you have a problem before you can really move on, and all this other kind of stuff. And then I piped up and said something. And when I did that, the assistant director glared at me. And he didn't say a word, but his look that he gave me told me, "You're nothing more than a staff trainee. You have no say on this. Your words are empty. Your opinions mean nothing." Okay? That's what I got from that glare. Keep your mouth shut and just watch how this works. So I'm like, okay. I kept my mouth shut, and he continued to say he didn't want to be here. "I'm going to leave. I don't need this place. I don't have a drug problem. I don't have a drinking problem," and all this other kind of stuff. And then about 5 or 10 minutes after that, all of a sudden he sat up, he put a smile on his face, and he goes, "I changed my mind. I want to be straight. I want to make changes. I want to start getting involved with the raps." And I was just like, well, that's pretty unusual for somebody to just turn it off like that and all of a sudden make this change. And I knew right away he didn't have any intention of doing any of that. As a matter of fact, he was going to cop out, because this pulling himself in the program wasn't going to work. Pulling himself from the program wasn't going to work. So now he needed to take it to the next level and find another way, and that was to cop out and leave. Everybody else in the room was clueless. They were all happy. They were thrilled with his changes, even though he hadn't made any changes other than saying he wanted to be straight. So the meeting ended. He was taken back to the group, and on the way back to the junior staff office, I told my junior no fewer than 3 times, he's going to cop out tonight. He's going to leave tonight. We need to get in touch with his old comer. We need to make sure that he's aware of the fact that this guy could leave tonight and to take extra precautions. If we feel like this isn't the strongest home for him to be in, we need to maybe consider moving him to another old comer's house, perhaps in an area that he's not familiar with. So if it does cop out, he's not going to have any idea where he's at or where he needs to go. But no. My junior was like, oh no, I feel good about him. He's making changes. This is positive. I'm excited for him. And I'm like, he's going to cop out. He's going to cop out. You need to listen to me. He's going to cop out and leave. My junior was having none of that. Didn't believe it. Nope. I feel good about him. Okay. The very next day, I come into work. I go to the junior office. I gain entry into the junior office, and I go straight to that cop out board. And that client's name is on that cop out board. Now, my junior at this point is sitting at his desk to my left. And I said, I knew it. I knew it. And he said, what did you know? And I said, I knew he was going to cop out and leave. And he looked at me and he goes, why didn't you tell anybody? I went off. I screamed and yelled. I said, I did. I told you multiple times that he was going to leave. But no, I feel good about him. He's making changes. So him and I are now bantering back and forth, screaming and yelling at each other, me insisting and knowing that I had told him he was going to cop out, and my junior absolutely in denial that I had told him anything. He was doing this because he knew that if he had applied the first and most important rule, which is honesty, he would be the one in the hot seat, not me. So we're arguing back and forth, and all of a sudden this gets the attention of the senior staff member, who comes out and wants to know what's going on. My junior looks at him and says, Don failed to report a cop-out. And then the screaming and yelling match started all over again, calling him a liar. He's being dishonest. You know darn well I told you that he was going to cop out, but no, you feel good about him. He's making changes. And so the bantering starts back and forth between my junior and I, leaving the senior staff member out in the cold. And he's like, that's it, Don. Get out of the office. I'll get to the bottom of this. I'm like, okay, you better. And I walked out. At that moment, any and all respect that I ever had for that junior staff member was gone. I just, all to save his butt, he lied and threw me under the bus. And I was never more disappointed and never more angry about anything in my life up to this point than right now, right here. Being completely lied on, and the honesty rule being thrown out the window. It was at this point that the depression got worse. The loneliness got worse because now my junior was now distancing himself even further away, and the other staff members were doing the same thing. They were distancing. Other than to yell and scream at me about something, they didn't want anything to do with me. And then the depression turned to suicidal ideations. And then from suicidal ideations to a plan to commit suicide.